ultimately, Nkrumah's vision, though premature, of a United States of Africa has to become a reality. And it is only when there is a United States where President Rollins can become governor. You don't like that. What do you have? What do you have? 12 million, 14 million people? We got almost that many in the state of New York, man. It's a state. What is Gabon? A state. What is Namibia? A state. Then you elect your president. Who will be the president of Africa? And you develop your road system. You develop your railroads. You have a centralized currency and a central bank that is owned by the people. After a while, you see your own, you don't have to go to Europe. Look at what is going on now. You got to send your cocoa somewhere else. Then they sell it back to you. You got iron ore. You send your iron ore to Europe, and they make steel and sell it back to you. Then they control the world market on cocoa, and they depress the cocoa. They depress the rubber. They depress your product, so you can't even build your economy. So you got to go to the international MFs of the world and ask them, excuse me, International Monetary Fund, and ask them for a loan after these G7 nations have sucked the blood of Africa. It is your disunity that is sentencing Africa to death, and it will be our unity that will give us life and power in the 21st century. So I want to work toward that if God spares my life, and if it pleases God that I don't live to see it. I hope that the young people that we are teaching will rise up to take up this challenge.
So Gaddafi, as an Arab, he knew that Nasser, who was a Pan-Africanist, though an Arab, and Kwame Nkrumah fostered the idea of an African Union, but it was an idea whose time really had not yet come because the African leaders had not matured enough. To take a word from Reverend Jackson, it is better to be the tail of something than the head of nothing. And so we have to mature to see that Africa cannot make it in an era of globalization with 53 African states loosely united in an organization called the Organization of African Disunity. Go ahead. Africa will not survive unless a change takes place. And since the strategic metals that America needs to be a superpower in this century are found predominantly in Russia and in Africa, America must have access to Africa. England must have access to Africa. France must have access to Africa in order to be powers in this next century. So the question is, how will they have access to Africa, and on what terms? They want the terms to be as it always has been, but Africa says no. And so Brother Gaddafi decided to push the idea, whether we agree with him or not. Gaddafi is an African leader that has oil wealth behind him. He has 3 or 4 million people, all of them armed. And he has stood against Western imperialism and made Libya a base for revolution. This is just facts. It is Gaddafi that helped to bring Museveni to power. It is Gaddafi that helped to bring Kabila to power in the Congo. It is Gaddafi who helped to bring Taylor to power in Liberia. And if you look at the number of African leaders who came out of the Mathaba, which is a world center for revolution that was headquartered in Libya, those African heads of state have a respect for Muammar Gaddafi. Mandela, when he was here and he was on television and they asked him about his connection to Libya, his connection to the PLO, he never denied the effort of Gaddafi to help the ANC. So this brother put his money behind energizing an African Union. Yes, he did breathe life into it, Sister Claudette. He fostered the idea of Nkrumah and NASA. And he had the money to back it up. Most black leaders have ideas, but they have to go to the enemy for the money. And the enemy controls how far you go with a good idea because they put the money behind you. But Gaddafi had the money. They say he wants to be the leader of Africa. They're playing on vanity and immaturity. Don't listen to the enemy. I go there. I'm on the continent. I can tell you what their thinking is, not the State Department. That's the enemy of African unity. The government of America has never been no friend of ours, and they don't intend to be any friend of ours. Anything we get from them is what we force out of them by the power of our own unity.
Because we want the world to know what is happening to nations. And I will close by saying this: Africa is in deep trouble. She's over $450 billion in debt to these international bankers. And before they loan money, they take away some of the nation's sovereignty and even some of the nation's natural resources. Africa can only be free of the international bankers by the unity of African leaders and people. And we should say to the IMF and the World Bank that what you have siphoned and sucked from the bloodstream of Africa and from the vein of our rich natural resources that helped you to build every capital in Europe, that's enough. We owe you nothing. You owe us your existence. And when we're united and strong, then you don't have to pay debts. You call your debt. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you all as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Who are the international bankers?
I named a lot of them today. What you should do is go and look at them. You know, I named the Warburgs, the Rothschilds, the Schiffs, the Lubes, the Cohns, the J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller. You know who they are. You don't have to act dumb. You know who they are.
Reports for them.
Thank you.
See you on TV.